You are watching Xirtus.
Okay, the lock bridge is like every European city has this by now because it's the Instagramification of Europe. I think it started in Prague, like Czech Republic. I think that was the first one, where like when you get a young couple and they're really madly in love, they would like engrave their names or their initials on a lock, and then they would put the lock on the side of the bridge and throw the keys into the river.
Hmm.
And I think it started in Czech Republic. It might be wrong. Maybe it was somewhere else.
That's
And
crazy.
by
Just
now we have
rebelling
like
against Soviet marriage licenses, and now it's become a cultural.
Mm.
nowadays, like really all over Europe at those touristy places, doesn't matter if it's Cologne, Germany, or Prague, Czech Republic, or Barcelona, or whatever. If you have a touristy place, like an Instagram spot, you will see a bunch of those locks anywhere. And it's really like I lived in Cologne, Germany for 11 years, and there's this one uh, really classical, like 19th century bridge, industrial bridge with those archways, you know? And it's a train bridge. And people started putting locks on those bridge, and people were like, we have to start taking those down because you cannot guarantee the structural integrity of that bridge. It's made for
Millions,
trains,
millions
but
of
not
pounds of
for
bronze, you know.
yeah. And they had moments where like parts of the what do you call it, fencing? They have fencing, so you're not walking into the train lanes. And the fencing was so full of locks it just collapsed under the weight, and so they had to start taking those down.
Oh.
And so they
Yeah.
melted down. They melted down a bunch of these into a statue of like
Yes, exactly.
Moloch or something. It was just horrifying. What
Oh,
Jesus, Moloch.
really?
Really?
Moloch?
I don't know about melting down. That part I don't know about, but I just know that we get those lock places all over Europe. Like all those famous spots are full of those locks, and it's unsettling.
Well, so when I met Max, one of the things we were talking about, and Max was criticizing about Europe, is like it's terrible. Like they've burned things down, they've destroyed all the museums. They've got, I mean, a lot of the time they're closed up, you know, hard to get into. The tourists go, but the art on the street are these modern art, cubicle, you know, these weird modern structures that are lacking, except for the more Masonic ones where you've got like the Louvre pyramid or something like that. There are these weird, you know, ultra modern things that are escape and void of culture and history, right? And we talked a bit about Tartaria. I want to bring also up the Pentelegraph machine, because that was something we kind of ended on Call's show last week. You'd asked a bit about Tartaria, and one of the things that I was thinking of as a great example is the Pentelegraph machine. And it's a machine that was essentially a fax machine. It has a pen that swings and it draws a picture and it sends signal over radio. And they say it's invented on here by Giovanni Caselli, right? At least he developed it and commercially used it in the 1860s. But when you go back further, you start to find examples of it in the 1600s, and that people were using it before this, maybe back into the Arab period in the 13th century. And so we can't really find it back in ancient India. We can't really find examples of how ancient the pentelegraph really was. One example of an ancient fax machine. And there's just so many things like this across Europe. The other one, of course, and I brought this up earlier on the show, is this siege of Vienna, which is, you know, we looked at this picture, pull this up, the siege of Vienna, and we've talked about star forts, right? Well, this is a star fort. You got the snowflake shaped fort, which is around Vienna, and then you got these trenches and tunnels and explosions and things, and the Ottoman hordes that are all surrounding it. And so at this time, Germany and Austria are considered to be maybe completely Christian, and they're trying to defend themselves against these no, that's not realistic. There are Austrian Muslims, there are Ottomans that have taken over villages and towns and have their own families. And it's a lot more convoluted. There's even Muslims living inside the city that eventually are pushed out. And so it's the beginning of this major disruption of European culture, of Eurasian culture, of the Muslim Spain connection to Holland. All of it starts to happen around that time. But Tartaria seems to be at the center of that. So when we think about it, we think about Germany. Germany was a place that didn't really exist as a country, right? Like when did they start calling it? They said the Republic of Germany. It's like 1800s even.
Yeah, like that was the Paulskirche in Frankfurt, like 18, I don't know, 86, 96, something like that. Don't name me on that. I'm not that big on German history. But yeah, it's like 19th
Not that
century.
big in German history, the Germans. See, this is what they've done to you. Look at what they've done to. It's not just because it's German. They just don't want history to be remembered. Exactly.
Yes, exactly. And also because German history's always been like portrait is very fractured, you know, so many fiefdoms and so many lords and like so many kings and so hard to keep track of, and it gets sold to you as very complicated in school. And then you get to the Hitler part and the Nazi part, and that part is very simple because we are the bad guys. And then you learn about being the bad guys for about 5 years on end.
Right.
So yeah, that's like it's a thing about subduing national pride, and that's what you do in the forms of how you teach your history. You know, if you only taught American history about slavery and the failings of Vietnam and Iran-Contra and stuff like that, then your self-image and your form of patriotism would be different as well.
True.
Right.
True.
Yeah, and that's the topic we're going to get to on Saturday. The topic of Germany being a cargo culture. We are like an imported culture that we get our stuff from the U.S. We have been ever since the Second World War. We don't have any autonomous expression of German culture. Very few examples. We'll get into that. And that is
Princeton's a cool band though. Das alles ist Deutschland. Oh, that was cool. Before they sold out. Come on.
In a way, that really is a German expression because they go back to the Thomaner Chor in Leipzig, you know, which is classical Catholic choir singing, you know, boys choir singing. That is traditional German expression of art, and that's where the Princeton come from. And so, in a way, even if you were trying to make a joke, you're right. The Princeton are one of very few examples of genuinely German expression of art. Werner Herzog is another one, but we'll get into that on Saturday. I'm just saying we don't have too much of a genuine own culture because most of us is a cargo culture implanted by the winning forces, which is mostly the US, but some of Britain, some of France as well. And in Eastern Germany, Russia, of course. And this supplanted this cargo culture, which formed our everything, our art, our TV, our media, our music, our pop culture, our cuisine, it doesn't matter. This cargo culture makes it really difficult to talk about what is German, you know, what is German tradition, what stems from a place of Germanness, which wasn't implanted in the last, 70 years.
The same with Spain, the same with France, the same with England, which has a German
yes, but with different filters, because for them you couldn't use this angle of shame, you know. Nobody has been shamed after World War II like us, like for the right reasons. Let's not debate that, but this factor of shame changes your view on patriotism and on self-love as a country, and that makes Germany so very unique when you talk about the aspects of Germanness, because most Germanness is very Catholic, is like imbued in guilt. Being German is being guilty.
Well, it's interesting also. Wait, Carl, do you like Rammstein? How do you feel about that?
Hell yeah, Rammstein. Yeah.
Too hot, right? Too hot. Come on.
Don't tell me they're evil now. I like them.
No, they're the best band ever. I love Rammstein.
Okay, good. I'm like, don't ruin it.
Don't ruin Rammstein. But there's a video for a new song, not that new, 2019, but it was before Plague, and it was called Deutschland.
Why not Deutschland? Yeah.
This song is just so important, and if you've seen the music video, you've got the Teutonic Knights that are fighting, and they're fighting for the queen, who is Deutschland, and she's a black nobility. Yeah, where's that picture at? I just lost her again.
Very cool.
But it's all through the history, so they're trying to explain the connections there to Germany to Arabia and to the ancient world. Here's some German coins, you know, that all say Allah on them that I was looking through, and you can find a bunch of these examples of German swords. Let's see if I can find German swords, Arabic, and they would say, like, you know, defend me. Yeah, here's some examples where the German sword printed with Arabic on the sword itself. Ottoman style swords, you know, connecting the Turks, which makes sense. And, you know, so it's crazy. We live in this world now where we're saying, hey, you know, we have to get back to our individualized cultures. We have this culture here, you have this culture there, instead of looking at it more like, you know, we used to trade a lot more. We weren't as isolated from each other. Germans were going places like on Viking boats. Africans were arriving there. I mean, clearly it was a far more integrated society then, thousands of years ago or whenever, than it is now. You know, what's going on with that?
I think it's certainly multifaceted. So I actually watched a very interesting video on this certain issue of disruption of individual thought as well as community interaction. Suspicious Observers is a channel that talks about the sun influencing our weather as well as geomagnetic fields shifting, changing, and affecting the human body because we also have our own magnetic fields. So apparently, at this point in time, we are rapidly decreasing in our Earth's magnetic shield strength due to the magnetic poles being in transit, about to flip, not the actual poles, but the magnetic poles. And it's increasing. And because of that increase, we as humans with our own mini magnetic shields and fields are weakened as well, and much more susceptible to interstellar radiation, X-rays, UV beam, like photon, anything shooting from space is going to mess with you a little bit more nowadays, and it's only going to ratchet up. And so this is, we are going to experience a bumpier ride for a time.